Hello and welcome to another video on OneForm. And today I'm going to talk about this value state that we've worked on and genericizing it because I realized I can use it for both values and errors since they're going to be the same kind of thing. So use values state doesn't make as much sense now. It'd be more like use observable state. I could say observables state because there are observables, but I think use observable state is fine. But I don't know if this makes as much sense. It is what it is, but you would pass in your values or your errors in here. And it actually would accept something that's called values because it's the values of the observables. So there's that. And then there is an initial state. No, it's not an initial state. It's the return value of the getter function when you have nothing defined. So it would be default value. So it takes your values and your default value. And then what is this complaining about? Oh, it's undefined. It's unused. Okay, I will for now. No, I don't want to. I'm just going to do this. And then when we pass it in later, I can define what it is. And then values, we don't know what we're doing with this yet, but this would be the values you pass into the form. Let me move this to the middle. We can borrow unit tests over there because we're not going to deal with them right now. So this now needs to be, so that's the generic part of it, but we're not doing anything with the values. There needs to be a use effect, which goes and changes, it basically wipes this object based on that. But in terms of what the form can do, we'll also have updated values, which instead of wiping would update the values. And I know this seems weird for it to take in a value like this, but that's the only way to do it without any kind of callbacks or anything else. I will add both of these and anything else. What's this complaint about? It's assigned a value but never used. We export it. It's right here. What's wrong? Oh, I don't know why I missed that and didn't think about it. So these aren't get field value anymore. It's just get value and then set value. And then when we bring it into OneForm, we will rename these in the deconstruction. Subscribe to value, or I could just call it subscribe. But it's not subscribing to the thing. It's subscribing to a specific value. And I want to be very clear about that. Okay. And what's default value? That's actually good. If the default value changes, which it never ever should, then we would do that. That's fine. I can get behind this. Create field value observable. It's not, so these are all field names. These are no longer field names because this is a generic hook. So these are just identifier. Wouldn't that what that be? It's an identifier. Yeah. Okay. And then the create observable. I can't name it that. Create value observable. Yeah, it's an observable for a specific value. That could work. So where I'm using it, I should rename these. Ooh, okay. Yeah. Okay. I need to put the use effects now. Let's save this and make sure that our tests still pass because they shouldn't. Actually, they should. If I think about it, they should. No, it shouldn't because I renamed it. Well, no, it doesn't. Yeah. Use observable state. It's going to be the new name. And I need to rename the file to match. This one needs to be renamed too. Can I read property default value of undefined? I'm not even, oh, do I have to use it here? Oh, that's why they did this thing. Ah, that makes sense now. Okay. Updated values. Man, what am I thinking here? Not update values, updated values. Oh, man. Okay. So these don't exist yet, so I don't really need to pass them in. I guess if you don't pass them in, I could default them here. The component is going to default them anyway, and I would expect you to pass something in for these. And I would also expect, this is where object prototype comes in. If this is object prototype, I can assure that this doesn't update the first time through. It won't wipe the values in the form. Basically what would happen is the form would load, it would just wipe everything. I don't want that to happen. So I could have a different hook that checks if it's first load, but instead of checking if it's first load, I could just pass in object prototype and then it would never have an issue because it would already been there. No, it would still do it on the first load. Why did I do that before? I know I used object prototype for these before, and there was a reason for it. Something about the use effect that I'm going to be writing here. So what happens is it initializes everything, and then values gets passed in to the use effect, and then it reinitializes. I'm a little confused. I don't want these to have to be passed in for my testing, but I guess it's fine. Let me just copy this whole thing. So I use render hook a few times, and I can use it the same every time. It's not a big deal. It might be good to have a default value that's different so I can verify that it's the one I expect. Why is it? I just want to search that. Yeah, okay. There's one here. There we go. Okay, now the test should pass. That was the backup I have that runs. I didn't figure out a way to hide the scripts. Okay, so Set field value. Yeah, it's not, yeah, because I renamed all the functions too. So it's get value, set value. Yeah, so when you do this, you have to update the tests. Hopefully the tests aren't broken now, but I'm pretty sure if they don't pass, then that tells me they're broken. And this one is subscribe to value. That's only because we made this more generic. Cool. No? Still got it. Broken test. Should set values on a single field. How about that? Should set values on a single field. So we call this, and then we act on it. I don't know. I like blanking right now. And this calls set value. There is a set value function. None of these other things look like they've changed. There are no linting errors. Okay, so it's expected to be called once. It got called 0 times. What were we doing in this one? Let's see what the test does. Should set values on a single field. Set values on a single field. So we subscribe, and then we act on it. We set a value on a single field, and then we set a value on another field. Okay, and then we check to see that our subscriber was called the one time, which was the one on that field. And we check to see that the field value is currently this, the one time that it got called. But what it's saying is it never got called. So it never did, set value never called create value observable, or never called the publish. But here it creates it, and then we do the publish. I don't know. I'm still wondering about renaming this publish to next. That shouldn't break any code though. That's a really good question. See what else is broken. Okay, so should publish values, should publish multiple values, should set values. So everything related to publishing doesn't work, but setting values does work. It has to, because then this next one would work, because we set a value here, and then we get a value. Is it just random? Is it actually erroring? Should publish multiple. I know what these are because I wrote them yesterday. It looks like it never calls it. That's the issue. It's just, okay. I know I was blanking there for a minute, but let's think about this. It's acting as if the subscriber never gets called. Okay, so let's find that out. The subscriber is being passed here from subscribe to value. And this is now called identifier and not field name. So that's the issue. Oh, it's not in the last two tests. It's in everything else. It'll be right there. Yeah. I'll make sure it's all the spots. What's another name for identifiers? Just ID? Selector, maybe? It's not a selector. It's the ID, identifier. So they use if I need something like, I don't know what somebody would name this, like namespace, or I think that's fine. The identifier and the subscriber, they're both in the same tense. Should work. Yeah, I passed all the tests. I know that. I'm just curious. Okay, so we got to write the use effect for both of these. They're going to be very similar. So I wonder if there's a helper function I can use to make that easier. Also, I'm literally going to overwrite what's in here when I do this one. And I'm then going, so start now. Now, if you did like TDD, test-driven development, you could test first. I already know what this should do. So I could do test-driven development and expect it to do something. And then we could see the test fail. And then I could write the code and we can see the test work. Use effect, I don't know how I would want to test this, because use effect happens over time. And there's use layout effect, which is the one that doesn't happen over time, as far as I know. And this just seems weird for me, the naming. It's very DOM oriented. I guess React is a thing for the DOM, but you don't have to use it with the DOM. That's why I think it's a weird name. Use effect makes sense. It's use side effect. This is really use side effect. You're just doing a side effect. That's why it does not return a value. Okay, so let's not worry about the merging. Let's worry about the wiping. That's the easy one. So when values updates, and there's something I have to think about this. There's something I got to do with this piece. So when values updates, we want to redo all of the values in here. So we want to call the create value observable on each one. Yeah, on each one. I can use this function in like a reducer. Maybe I should put these at the bottom, just so I have access to all the functions should I need them. Because what I'm doing with this is I'm not necessarily deleting the observables. I'm taking the observables that do exist, and I'm publishing new values to them. That's really what I'm doing. Okay, so when values updates, I need to publish values to all the observable. I see. And I have to object entries to get all of them. Or do I just need object values? No, I need to know the name to match it against values. What I really need to do is loop the values and then call the thing of this, if it exists, and then publish. So I would need to call set value on each one, which does exactly. So I don't need this at all here. I just need values. And then I need to object.entries. Do I need that? Yes, I need entries. Because I need both the name and the value, the key and the value. So we would map here. No, this is a for each. It's a side effect. And this gives us a key and a value. But I need to be clear here. This is the identifier and this is the value. And that will be a little bit, instead of calling it key, it'll be more clear that this is the thing I'm going to use as what's called the identifier in this particular function here. No, sorry, this just takes too hard. Yeah, like that. Now, my thinking is that I don't want this to get called too many times. I'm not sure if it will or not. I have a feeling this isn't going to work like I expect, this use effect. Because I think it gets called once and then values comes in or something and then it gets called again. I'm not sure. It should not do that though. The only time this should get called is after these values have already existed the first time, I think. Man, there's a lot of unknowns here. So if it's updated values, we could test the bottom one. It's fine. I'll get to that later. So updated values, for each updated value, we want to set the value. Oh, I see. I see what's going on. This one's wrong. This one is correct. What we need to do is we need to make it so that when you do pass in the values, it overwrites all the values there right now. That's what it is. So this just updates them. But I need to overwrite all the values that aren't there and make them quote, or the default value, I should say. I need to make them the default value. Okay, so that means this has to be down here. That's interesting. Yeah, so I might need this thing. The question I have is I want to make sure I don't double up on anything. If I'm trying to think how I would do this. If I want to merge them, how can I make sure that I'm not duplicating values? So I can merge two arrays together. That could work. And if I get an observable, I'll just pass a value. But if I get a value, I would just put the value in there. The values will all have to be strings. So I can depend on that. You can put other data in there. You really could. It doesn't have to be a string. I default it to strings here because it's a form library. And there's an implicit assumption that everything is a string in a form library. Yes, you can store objects on other things, but it's an unintended use case. And if that's the case, I have to change a lot of the code to accommodate. Because when one doesn't exist here, I'm defaulting it to the quote. But if, like a null string, I think that's what you'd call this is a null string. Maybe I'm wrong. So like that default value is based on that. Otherwise, it would return null. The problem is if you do a get value on a field and it doesn't exist, this would error. But let's think through this. If it's null all the time or undefined, which is what it would be here, that's accurate to the field and we don't have to worry about the default value. And we can have use field handle that for us. It would handle defaulting it to quote, because if you want to use OneForm for state management in your entire React app, then it would make sense that you wouldn't have a default value. Now, if you have errors though, it's far more convenient. Let's say that this is for errors. It would be convenient to have a default because you want the default to be an array so that you don't have to check it every time to make sure if it's an array or something else. So like me thinking of, okay, I want to build a React app with this form library, or this should really only do this one thing. Those are conflicting things in my mind right now. Because I'm assuming people could use OneForm for more than I expected. Like it's so simple to set up and use that it makes sense that you would do that. This is a good question. I don't want to have to pass this in. And so that's one reason. I can't infer this at all. There's no way to infer the default. Yeah. Huh. Because what do I set it to? No value, undefined? Just leave it undefined? If you call set value, if you call set value and don't pass one in, it just publishes what undefined. And it will publish undefined. And that will be the current value, which I almost feel like is okay. I also don't want to merge two things together, but I don't want to have name conflicts. I don't want to duplicate. I don't want to like fire off and update and then fire off and update again. So I think the way to do this would be, however weird it is. So if I did this, that brings them together. I am expecting this to be shallow. And this is shallow in the same way. And then I have to down here, I can't just set value. I have to check first if it's an observable and then publish. And if it is not, I will call set value. And how would I check if it's an observable? There's no type on it. I'm like, there's no data type here. I would check if it has a subscribe method. I think that's safe. Yeah, because I'm going to call publish, so I should check for a publish method. If value $.publish, I would prefer to do this with a ternary, but I'm writing something for other people to use. So if it has a publish, I'll call publish. Else, I'll call set value. Oh, it's undefined at that point. I just published nothing because they didn't define a value and we're wiping it. Oh, that makes sense. Okay, yeah, this could work. This could definitely work. So I just call publish on it because I've already gotten all the identifiers. So you only need the identifier for setting the value. Otherwise, you're getting the observable directly and you don't need to know which one it is. You already have it. That could work. Man, this is really making me wonder. It doesn't seem hacky, and then removing this is great. So this really does return undefined if you don't have a value on it. And you have to handle that in your code. Like in use field, I would handle. Okay, I could deal. I think that's okay. It's less work for me. but it also means anybody that needs to make their own use field also has to account for that, which is fine because they might have a use field that they want to be different. So then when I say you should get a default value, we don't have default value. Should get no field value when one not set. Should get it. I want to use get because that's what we're doing is a get action. We're getting a field value. Otherwise, it should be undefined when not set. You know, when not set, I can do that. How about that? Should get no field value when not set. Perfect. That makes sense. It's getting name and it is not set. Therefore, that should work. So it should be undefined. Okay, I sure hope this is what I want because this functionality is going to be weird. I have to now assume that when I'm messing with errors and I'm getting error values everywhere else, that the errors will be undefined and I have to default them to quote. I have to know that in other places, whereas if I passed it in here, I would know what it is at this level. So those are some things to keep in mind. Why is it to be? Prefer to be undefined. Oh, I could do that. Okay. Oh, wait, I'm not using undefined in my code. Okay. This is a lot of, see, this is what I'm kind of like architecting on the fly. Man, this is, I really got to think through this. Yeah, I'm thinking it's hacky to put a default value in here, and I don't like it. I think I really want a default value because I don't want to call like set value or value. This is in my mind is that this could be used for other things, and that's really why I'm doing this. Not having this implicit assumption that this should return a string every time. I guess it's fine to do it this way for now. And if it ends up being bad, I'll change it. The problem is I just feel like I'm going to architect around it, and if it ends up being bad, like I screwed up. It is more dynamic the way I'm doing it. Okay, so what now are we testing? What should it do? Should I even put should? Should it say publish values to field subscribers? Like, why are you putting should in front of every test? I bet you somebody's written an article about this. I didn't find anything in my short search, but I'm wondering if there is a way, there's a paradigm that people use so they don't use the word should. So be like, get no field value when not set. That sounds weird. I would say doesn't have a field value when none set or something like that. Oh, this should be not none set. Get no value. It's no field value. It's just get no value. I'm going to change all the field part. I should get no value when none set. It should have no value none set. Okay, I don't know. It's like bed. Should get the value. Should get the set value. Should get the value I set. Yeah. Okay. Should set values on a single field on a single identifier. Should publish multiple values to subscribers. Should publish values to subscribers. Perfect. This is way more generic. I like that. What do we want to test now? One thing I would like to test is that when you update values, it updates the values. But I would have to check all of the ones that are there. That's fine. I can do two. Should update values. Did I just put this? Should update values, blah, blah, blah. And then just pass this in and assume that's what's going to be. Or should reset values is the next one. Or something like that. It should clear them. It should overwrite values to be the other one. So should update values and should whatever. But there's no text there's no context to it. Should update values when passed, when changed. I'm just going to leave it should update values. The other one will be should overwrite values. But I wonder then at that point, do I need should get values and whatever. So updated values is going to be I'm going to have to set values and I'm going to have to call this again and update it. I don't know how you do that. How do I pass new values into the hook? How do I pass new values? Please tell me. What's wrong with the display name rule? Oh, that. I'm not seeing those. Similar technique could use display the async. No, none of this. Is this it? Sometimes the hook can trigger asynchronous updates that will not immediately be reflected in the result. Yeah, current value. Luckily, it returns some utilities. Allow the test to wait for the hook to blah, blah, blah. I don't think that's the thing I want. I want this to execute this, and then I want to call it again with a different value. Huh. Oh, hey, there is an over 9,000 thing. Oh, there we go. It's over 9,000. Okay, hang on. What are we looking for? We're looking for a way to call this a second time. Let's see if we can find some information on it. Render hook. Called once. I don't want to call. Oh, there was something like force update or something like that. I saw it. It was like update component. How do you update the component? So this is advanced. It feels like what we're doing. I'm looking for this function and I might have passed it already. Okay, let me go all the way down. Literally the next one. It's is this re-render function, which sadly is not defined. Oh, here it is. Oh, it was from the hook. The hook had a re-render function. Oh, what is this? Oh no, it has results in re-render. I can call it with something else. No. So re-render is like that. Then So here's what we do. We subscribe to, no, this is the get value one, but we subscribe to, I'm trying to think through it. There are going to be two values that I need. I need to set two different values first. And then I need to make sure that when I get the value, okay, so let's first set the value twice. Let's move this all the way up here. I'm going to set a name and an email. Name is going to be equal to, yeah, that's interesting. I've been doing values as objects in my tests instead of string. Why would I do that? Why would I think that's a good idea? Updated values. Interestingly enough, values also needs to be passed in again, but not changed. So I do need to pass in values, but not change it the second time. Because the way the hook works is it doesn't have a default for them. And so if you don't pass it, obviously it's going to be broken. You have to make sure that you retain the state when you do it with memoization. Let me go back here to where I'm doing value. Yeah, what am I doing here? That's not the value. The value is a string, and the value should be like John Doe. Yeah, John Doe. Something like somebody that died though. John Smith. There. That's a very generic name. Yeah, see, stuff like this. Well, is that crazy? johnsmith@gmail.com. I could do something like that. Or at mail.com, we just put some generic one. Email.com. There we go. Yeah. And we just put a period here. Some people do that. John Smith and Jane Smith. I don't know who else's name I'd use. But name now literally means name, which I think is okay. So this will re-render. This should break right now. Yeah. Okay. So I do this. Oh, this doesn't exist. Yeah, because we're just setting the value twice. So the first time I set it, I'm going to make it equal to, John Smith. It doesn't matter. Okay. I'm just going to put here like name value equals John Smith. It's going to be important in a second, but I also put name field value. These field value ones should not be that. They should be just value. And then this email value ones should be just email value. Okay. And then it should error here. Yeah, good. That's where I wanted it to error. So I made name equal to this, and I also made email, right, equal to john.smith@email.com. I'm going to change that to example.com or test.com. That's probably better because it's a test email account. What I do? Oh, I see. The wrong key combination. This is the email value. The only reason I'm putting them as string is so I can ensure that I'm getting the right thing. I don't want to, because the tests are so far away from each other, rewriting the string again could be problematic. So those are the values that I expected to have. Then they don't matter. I don't expect these at all. I'm going to override the name one. So when I call this, it would be updated values like this, and then it would be name, and then it would be Jane Smith. And I would expect to see Jane Smith. Now here's the thing, by putting Jane Smith in here, it actually is probably more confusing to somebody because John and Jane look very similar. So I'm going to make it Jane of the Jungle. So that'll make it like very clear there's John and Jane of the Jungle, and they're two different things. Now values here, I have to actually save this outside of it because it needs to be memoized. So this memoizes it. So if I pass it in a second time, it should not remove all the values. It should just update this one. So email should be equal to this, but name should be equal to that, which is now, this is the name value. I hope these tests make sense to people. And if anybody can tell me a better way to do it, that would be great. So let's see, get value. Yes, at this point, I want to get the value of name. I also need to get the value of email. So this is not field value ref. Oh, I have to change the other one. Okay. Now in this case, it's going to be name value ref, and there's going to be email value ref. So first we'll set the name one equal to name, and then we'll set the email equal to email. And then I've got to fix my import thing here. Try to do that. Nope, that was wrong. There we go. And then down here, oh, this is just copy. Now we can check these two. I could do the expect twice, but I kind of like to put them at the bottom. I don't know what a good pattern is. Anybody has any suggestions? It'd be good to know. I would love to learn on these things. To be, and then it is email value ref.current, and then name value ref.current. Oh, that's what this is. Wait, hang on. No. Because name value and email value or whatever. That don't happen there. I put this in the wrong spot. You'd think I'd catch that. Also, I'm like coding on the very right of the screen. I need to swap these. There we go. Now it's in the middle. I'm so sorry about that. Ooh. Jane of the Jungle and John Smith. See, there we go. That's what I expected. Much better. So I don't think re-render takes args. That's okay. Hang on. Let me find it. Where am I? I don't think this re-render takes args. I don't think it's calling your hook again, as I expected it to, unless I put them here. I don't know. I'm making some guesses of how this works. Huh. I could just pass the value straight in. This is the one that I need. Maybe if I did this, it would be better. But then I got to call it with something. I don't know. What, like, how would this call it with these values? Yeah, because they'd have access to my hook. No, they don't. They have the access to the result of my hook. So what does re-render do then? That's fine, but if there are lots of props, it can become difficult to have a variable to keep track of them all. Another option is to use the initial props option and new props of re-render. Initial value. Oh, check it out. Render hook, initial value. Ah, hey, check it out. This is what I want. You can use re-render. I just did it wrong. Okay. So then it does take a thing. It's initial value. And he said you could put some new props. I don't know what that is. I'm assuming there's a new props here. So here's initial value. And then I put it here, but I want that stuff. We'll figure it out. And then initial value in the re-render is equal to this. I don't know why they're calling it initial value then. It's literally changing value. Initial props is initial value. All right, let's see. Let's put this in new lines here. I can read it. I think this is, no. I was gonna say, I think this is enough for me to read it, but I'm not sure what's going on still. Okay, this is what? This is, why is there a comma here? And then why is there this stuff? Is this another argument to the function? Let's see. This does not make sense to me. There's no way you can have this. So this is an argument. And this must be the other argument then. So render hook takes 2 args. Oh, this is why it's not making sense. Okay, it should look like this. Oh, much better. Now I can read it. Okay, so 1 arg to render hook is this, and then the second arg is the initial value. I see, so you don't pass it in yourself. You do it like this. See, now I can read it. Okay, so I want that. Okay, I still don't know why it's called initial value. Because if you can re-render with a different initial value, it's not the initial value. If that makes sense. But here, basically what I was doing was wrong. So this is wrong. I don't want that. Much better. I do want values to remain consistent, but I think this is the other thing. Initial props, initial value. Oh, it's not called initial value. This is really confusing. Yeah, the example is very confusing. I get why it's written that way in some ways, but it's still confusing because I thought that had significant meaning right here. But it's just the props. So I'd literally just do props here and then just pass props. And at that point, why don't I just do this again? Oh my God. At this point, I can just pass the function directly like I had it before. There was no reason to call it. This is so much easier. I wish they would have just, I feel like the example wasn't very clear. I know I didn't read it or anything, but it wasn't very clear. I should be able to look at the code and figure out what it's doing. So this re-render is correct. So all I needed to do was add a second arg to it. And that was it. I did call re-render correctly. It does take the props and pass them in. And it makes sense too, because I was like, how does it get the props? There we go. That, whatever. Okay, this works. Now we need to check the other one to make sure that works, right? So we're down here, should overwrite values. Overwrite values. Provided updated values does not change this time. And then values is going to be like this. No, you can't do that, can you? Okay. Then the second time values is called, it should override both values when I just update a single value. It's weird to memorize certain props in here, but I think it makes sense. I could just default them. I really don't want to because my expectation is that you pass both of them. Yeah, the OneForm will pass both of them in. That is the expectation, so I will mock them. But it makes unit testing a little worse. Okay, so all this is the same. You're setting both of them. But now I need to get the name and email. They're both, email is going to be undefined. And the reason email is going to be undefined is because I'm only, if you look here, when I call re-render, I'm calling values with just that name prop changed. Meaning that email will be, yeah. I want the test to fail so that I can fix it. I feel like the fact that the test just passes makes me not understand if it's actually working or not. And that's why test-driven development is a thing, because you're supposed to test it ahead of time and then do that. But it's fine. Like, if I would have known this ahead of time, I could have done TDD. I didn't. And I'm fine having done it after the fact. It's not a big deal. It doesn't hurt anything. It could lead to worse testing because I never saw it in the broken state. So I don't know if the test is just happening to pass. But I know it was broken because the last one was broken. I just literally copy pasted. All right, cool. This is done. And that'll be the end of this video. Oh my gosh, this thing got long. Yeah, but that is how you test hooks in React. Oh, great. Yeah, the testing the hooks like this is honestly, it's okay. I get it. I can see why you do it this way. It's weird. My tests are very long. I don't like it. But the benefit is that they're all self-contained. They can be run in parallel. Everything is testable. And it works. My code works. That's the best part about it. So I don't need use observable state anymore. We have defined it out. The only thing that potentially could get added again is the default value. I'm not sure about that yet. Cool. That's it. Hey, thanks for watching that video on OneForm. If you'd like to give me any feedback, I'd appreciate that. I do read all the comments and I do respond to most of them. some don't have a response. It's like, oh, great job. Okay, I'm not going to respond to that. I'll just put a little like on there. If you like what you see and you want to see more, feel free to leave some feedback. I'd appreciate it. I can take criticism. It's completely fine. But if you had anything positive to say, I would really appreciate that too, because I don't know who's watching this channel, right? I see there are views on the videos, but I don't know who they are. On my other channel where I do the code conversations and opinion pieces, I get more feedback on those. So I know roughly who's watching them, and then people will retweet me and stuff like that. But on this particular channel, I've got no feedback to work with so far, so I don't really know what you think, and I'd love to hear from you. Thank you very much. Goodbye.